Welcome to BitBlitz Horror, where nightmares come to life. Tonight we're diving into Depths of Terror, the Kraken's Awakening. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe for more terrifying tales. Now brace yourselves as we plunge into the dark, monster-infested waters. The salt-laden wind whipped across my face as I stood at the helm of the Mariner's Fortune, our weathered fishing trawler. The rhythmic creaking of the hull and the distant cries of seagulls were the only sounds breaking the eerie silence of the open sea. I'd been captain of this vessel for 2 decades, and I'd seen my fair share of strange occurrences out on these waters. But nothing could have prepared me for what we were about to encounter. Our crew of 8 had set out from the small coastal town of Blackrock Harbor 5 days ago, hoping for a bountiful catch to make up for the lean months we'd endured. The fishing industry had been struggling, and we were desperate for a big haul to keep our families fed and our boats afloat. As I scanned the horizon, a nagging feeling of unease settled in the pit of my stomach. The sea was unnaturally calm, like glass stretching as far as the eye could see. No wind, no waves, just an unsettling stillness that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. "Captain," called out Mac, our seasoned first mate, his grizzled face creased with concern. "Something ain't right." "The fish finder's gone haywire," I frowned, making my way to the bridge where Max stood hunched over the equipment. The screen flickered and jumped, showing impossibly large masses moving beneath our vessel. "Must be malfunctioning," I muttered, more to reassure myself than anything else. But deep down, I knew better. In all my years at sea, I'd never seen the fish finder act like this. Suddenly, a low rumble reverberated through the ship, causing the deck to vibrate beneath our feet. The calm sea began to churn, frothing and bubbling as if it were boiling. "All hands on deck!" I bellowed, my voice carrying over the growing cacophony of creaking metal and rushing water. The crew scrambled to their stations, faces pale with fear as they looked to me for guidance. I tried to project an air of calm confidence, but my heart was racing. Something was very, very wrong. Without warning, a massive tentacle, easily as thick as the ship's mast, burst from the water beside us. It was a sickly pale green, covered in pulsating suction cups the size of dinner plates. Before any of us could react, it slammed down onto the deck with bone-crushing force, splintering wood and bending metal. Screams of terror filled the air as more tentacles emerged, writhing and twisting like monstrous serpents. They wrapped around the ship, constricting with terrifying strength. The Mariner's Fortune groaned under the assault, her sturdy frame buckling under the immense pressure. "Cut the lines!" I shouted, grabbing a nearby axe and hacking at the nearest tentacle. "We need to break free!" The crew sprang into action, wielding whatever makeshift weapons they could find. But for every tentacle we managed to sever, 2 more seemed to take its place. The air filled with a putrid stench, like rotting fish in decay, as inky black blood oozed from the creature's wounds. Through the chaos, I caught a glimpse of something rising from the depths. A massive, bulbous head breached the surface, easily dwarfing our vessel. 2 enormous eyes, each larger than a man, fixed upon us with a cold, alien intelligence that sent shivers down my spine. This was no mindless beast. This was something ancient, something that had lurked in the deepest trenches of the ocean since time immemorial. The Kraken had found us. As if sensing my recognition, the creature let out a deafening roar that shook the very air around us. The sound was unlike anything I'd ever heard before, a nightmarish blend of whale song and the grinding of tectonic plates. It resonated in my chest, making my heart stutter and my vision blur. "Captain?" Mac's panicked voice cut through the din. "The hull's breached. We're taking on water!" I turned to see seawater gushing into the lower decks, the ship listing dangerously to one side. We were sinking, and there was nothing we could do to stop it. "Abandon ship!" I ordered, my voice hoarse with desperation. "To the lifeboats!" But as the words left my mouth, I realized the futility of our situation. The Kraken's tentacles had completely enveloped the mariner's fortune, crushing our only means of escape. We were trapped, at the mercy of this leviathan from the depths. Time seemed to slow as I watched my crew fighting for their lives. Young Tommy, barely 18 and on his first deep-sea expedition, was snatched up by a tentacle and dragged screaming into the churning waters. Grizzled old Pete, who'd been fishing these waters longer than I'd been alive, was crushed against the mast, his body going limp as bones snapped like twigs. I felt a surge of rage and despair. This couldn't be how it ended. Not like this, not at the hands of some ancient horror that shouldn't even exist. With renewed determination, I charged towards the bridge, intent on sending out one last distress call. As I reached for the radio, a massive tentacle smashed through the windows, showering me with broken glass. I felt the slimy appendage wrap around my waist, squeezing the breath from my lungs. As it began to pull me out into the open air, I caught a final glimpse of the Kraken's eye. In that moment, I understood true terror. The eye wasn't just observing us, it was studying us, dissecting our fear and desperation with cold, alien curiosity. This wasn't about food or territory. The Kraken was toying with us, experimenting with our limits, our breaking points. As I was lifted high above the sinking remains of the mariner's fortune, I saw the full extent of the creature's massive form. Its body stretched for what seemed like miles, tentacles writhing in all directions. The sea itself seemed to bend to its will, creating a maelstrom that threatened to swallow what was left of our ship and crew. With my last ounce of strength, I managed to pull a flare gun from my belt. As the tentacle began to lower me towards the Kraken's gaping maw, a nightmarish orifice lined with rows upon rows of razor-sharp teeth, I fired the flare directly into its massive eye. The creature's roar of pain was deafening, causing waves to form in the once calm sea. Its grip on me loosened, and I plummeted towards the churning waters below. As I fell, I caught a fleeting glimpse of the Kraken beginning to sink back into the depths, its wounded eye glowing an angry red in the darkening waters. I hit the water hard, the impact knocking the wind out of me. As I struggled to stay afloat amidst the debris of our destroyed vessel, I realized that I was the sole survivor of the mariner's fortune. The sea around me was eerily calm once again, as if the horrific encounter had never happened. For hours, I drifted on a piece of floating wreckage, my mind replaying the terrifying events over and over. The sun set and rose again, and still, I clung to life, surrounded by the vast, uncaring ocean. Dehydration and exposure began to take their toll, and I found myself slipping in and out of consciousness. In my delirium, I saw visions of the Kraken rising from the depths again and again. Each time, it seemed larger, more terrifying. Its tentacles reached across the horizon, blotting out the sun. Its eye, now healed and filled with malevolent intelligence, seemed to look directly into my soul. As the second day of my ordeal dawned, I heard the distant thrum of an engine. At first, I thought it was another hallucination, but as the sound grew louder, I realized it was real. A Coast Guard vessel appeared on the horizon, and I used the last of my strength to wave frantically. The rescue team found me babbling incoherently about giant tentacles and monstrous eyes. They chalked it up to trauma and hallucinations, treating me with a mixture of pity and skepticism. As they pulled me aboard and began treating me for dehydration and exposure, I tried desperately to make them understand the danger that lurked beneath the waves. But they didn't believe me. How could they? The idea of a mythical sea monster attacking a modern fishing vessel was too fantastical, too far-fetched to be taken seriously. They nodded politely as I recounted my tale, exchanging knowing glances that spoke volumes about their disbelief. In the days and weeks that followed my rescue, I was questioned extensively by maritime authorities, insurance investigators, and even local law enforcement. They were looking for answers. What had happened to the mariner's fortune and her crew? Where was the wreckage? How had I alone survived? I told my story again and again, each time met with the same mix of skepticism and concern. Some thought I had gone mad with grief and guilt, inventing a fantastic tale to cope with the loss of my ship and crew. Others suspected foul play, insinuating that I might have had a hand in the disappearance of the vessel for insurance money. The nightmares plagued me nightly, visions of writhing tentacles and that cold, alien eye studying me with detached curiosity. I would wake up screaming, drenched in sweat, the phantom sensation of slimy tentacles wrapping around my body. I tried to convince myself that it had all been a vivid hallucination brought on by the stress of a sinking ship and days adrift at sea. But deep down, I knew the truth. The Kraken was real, and it was still out there, waiting in the darkest depths of the ocean. Months passed, and I found myself unable to return to the sea. The very sight of the ocean filled me with paralyzing fear. I took a job at the local fish market, as far from the water as I could get while still using the only skills I had. But even there, surrounded by the day's catch, I couldn't escape the memories. Every large fish I seemed to watch me with that same alien intelligence, every squid tentacle a miniature reminder of the horrors I'd witnessed. As time went on, my story became something of a local legend. Some mocked me as the crazy captain who'd lost his mind at sea. Others, especially among the older fishermen, listened to my tale with a mix of fear and respect. They had their own stories of strange occurrences out on the water, things they'd seen that defied explanation. One night, as I sat alone in a dimly lit corner of the harbor pub, an old sailor approached me. His face was weathered by years at sea, his eyes holding a haunted look that I recognized all too well. "I believe you, Captain," he said quietly, sliding into the seat across from me. "I've seen it too." For the first time since that fateful day, I felt a glimmer of hope. Someone else had encountered the Kraken and lived to tell the tale. As the old sailor recounted his own brush with the monster, I realized that we were not alone. There were others out there who had seen the truth lurking beneath the waves. Over the next few months, I connected with more survivors. We formed a small, secretive group, sharing our stories and piecing together what we knew about the Kraken. It became clear that the creature had been active for centuries, its attacks often dismissed as freak accidents or unexplained disappearances. Armed with this knowledge, I felt a new sense of purpose. We couldn't let the Kraken continue to prey on unsuspecting sailors. We had to find a way to warn others, to protect them from the fate that had befallen my crew. But as we delved deeper into our research, we uncovered something even more terrifying. The Kraken wasn't just a solitary monster, it was part of something larger, something that had been hidden from humanity for millennia. Ancient texts and obscure maritime records hinted at a whole ecosystem of massive, intelligent creatures dwelling in the deepest parts of the ocean. The Kraken we had encountered was just the tip of the iceberg. There were more out there, perhaps even larger and more terrifying than what we had faced. And they were becoming more active, venturing closer to the surface with each passing year. As I stand here now, looking out over the harbor where I once set sail without a care in the world, I am filled with a mixture of dread and determination. The Kraken is still out there, waiting in the darkest depths of the ocean. And I know it's only a matter of time before it surfaces again, bringing terror and destruction to unsuspecting sailors. But this time, we'll be ready. Our group of survivors has grown, our knowledge has expanded, and we're preparing to face the ancient horrors of the deep. We may be few, and the odds may be against us, but we're humanity's first line of defense against a threat most people don't even know exists. As I watch the sun set over the water, casting an eerie red glow across the waves, I can't help but wonder, when the Kraken rises again, will we be strong enough to face it? Or will we, like so many before us, be dragged down into the cold, dark depths, never to be seen again? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, the battle for our oceans, and perhaps for humanity itself, has only just begun.